Coming up, what an excellent day for Schmaltz. Well, howdy folks, and welcome to minute 65 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate The Exorcist, minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. All right, so our minute begins with Karras saying, "Do people tell you you look like Paul Newman?"
And it ends with Karras saying, "In the fall."
But let's go back to the top here. Fun fact, Keenan, did you know that, according to Friedkin at least, Paul Newman actually wanted to play Father Karras in this film?
Yeah, I did know that. It's a good part. And Paul Newman would have been at the height of his fame. So that why is that such a bad idea?
Yeah, I mean,
casting Paul Newman.
Yeah. Actually, okay, yeah. It turns out there's a lot of people. There was there was a line around the block to play Father Karras. And I got another one for you, Keenan.
Mm-hmm.
I found this out in between scenes with Karras, and so I was waiting for him to show up again to drop this on you.
Mm-hmm.
You know who also contributed to this film and was willing to surrender 100% of their pay in order to play Karras?
Oh, I don't know this one. They contributed to this film. So
Yes.
It's not Lee J. Cobb.
It's not Lee J.
wanting
Cobb.
to play Father Karras.
Nope.
I don't know.
Okay. Do you want to? I'm gonna give you three guesses.
Okay. Billy Friedkin could have been Father Karras.
It was not Billy Friedkin, but
Okay.
you are on the right track.
Billy Blatty.
It was Billy
No,
Blatty.
that's
Yes.
silly.
Silly Billy.
Oh, why would he do that?
He's the one who wrote it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you're the one, you actually had said it before, actually twice, I think. You said that you assumed that Karras was probably a lot like Blatty, because
Right. Mhm.
that's what we creative types do. We insert ourselves into the stories, right? Like how every Stephen King story has a writer.
Well, not to make any spoilers, but if you're reading a Stephen King novel right now, there's a good chance that Stephen King is a character in the novel that you're reading right now. So I guess it's kind of a spoiler. So I won't say which novel that is, but
Right.
he is a character in his own novels.
Which novel or novels?
No,
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. Right, but there's this thing online that they'll say like, oh, this is a self-insert, where like, oh, this is a story about Lester, and he's the kid's favorite teacher at school, and he gets all the money and all the gals, and he's super nice, and everyone talks about how pretty he is all day. And by Lester Clark.
Yes. Yeah. All the gals being the other teachers. We're just being clear.
Oh, not
that.
with the student. No.
Yeah,
no.
Right. Yeah. But yes. So that was one instance where you had mentioned that, Keenan, and then like at one point we were talking about how Blatty writes kids, right?
Uh-huh.
I think we were talking about like Reagan's character and wondering if Blatty had kids, and it turns out he has a whole bunch, right? The Blatty bunch,
Right.
But then you had said in that episode that you kind of assumed that he was a priest.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, because he'd been to school. He'd been to
Georgetown University.
Yeah, Georgetown. Yeah. And studied theology. I assumed he wanted to be a priest, right?
Yeah. So yeah, he really wanted to be Father Karras.
Now, we have seen Blatty act in this movie. He is in the movie shooting scene where they're shooting the musical remake of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and he shows up there as a producer on the movie. He's got sort of a 70s porn stash on.
Yeah,
we didn't
he
mention
does.
that before there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was popular then.
Right. If you shave it off, he kind of looks like Judd Hirsch.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and Judd Hirsch would be a big TV star, but I don't know. I didn't look at him and go, oh, that's somebody I want to know more about or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going strictly by looks, I mean, I got to give it to Jason Miller. I mean, like he is Father Karras. Like there is no other
Right.
Father Karras that I can think of. Like not even Stacy Keach, not even Paul Newman.
Right.
But yeah, but I will say, folks, again, like if you are a fan of The Exorcist, even if you have already read the book on your own, I highly recommend you seek out Blatty's reading of the book. And he does the first edition. My recording says Dove Audio, and that one is up on YouTube. And I'll post it up in the Facebook group as well, right? I really don't think he gets enough credit for the performance he does. Like, each character is different, right? He does a great Chris, he does a great Kinderman, and he does a really great Captain Howdy, like without any like modulation in his voice or anything like that, right? You're just like, yep, that is Captain Howdy. and he does an amazing Damian Karras. So at least in the audiobook, he is Damian Karras. So I thought that was interesting. And yeah, he did a really amazing job. So do go and check him out. And he also does the 40th anniversary version as well. That one's up on Audible. It's also good. There's a couple of new things we're going to talk about when they come up. I'll most likely mention them when they do, especially because I have some opinions about those editions, specifically this new character that, I don't know, we'll get into that.
A new character for The Exorcist?
A new character in The Exorcist. He doesn't show up in the film. But he's in this 40th anniversary edition, and
Is it
yeah,
Karl's evil twin.
It's Karl's evil twin, Kyle. And he is German. And it turns out Captain Howdy didn't kill Burke Dennings. It was Kyle.
Oh no!
So they were half right because they were suspecting Karl, right?
Kyle, what are you doing here? You've shown up finally in my life after all this time.
I sought after that moment on the bridge. That would be our last meeting.
Yeah, well, you was wrong, was he not? Oh, Karl, I was always telling you to cheer up, lighten up a little bit.
You're right. No, he would be. Oh my God, Keenan, you are writing this perfectly, right? So Karl would be the dour,
right,
like mean-faced one who's actually kind, and Kyle would be all cheery. He would be Heimlich,
exactly,
but like a murderous Heimlich.
Right. Oh, anyone who looks poorly at my brother has to be taken down. Calls you a Nazi. We all have a great time. Oh, it's so funny. But that was the end of him, was it not?
I can fight my own battles, Kyle.
Well, then we better start doing it.
I think I will do it right now. And it ends with them both tumbling out the window. But then Karl survives, right? Because he lands on top of Kyle, right? And the last words are, "He broke my fall and my heart."
Aw, poor Karl never catches a break, right?
Yeah, no, he never catches a break. His brother caught a break. Hey! I love these spin-offs we create. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that new character. No. It is not Kyle, Karl's long-lost brother, right?
Well, I already love him.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I wish, dear William Peter Blatty, oh, wait, you're dead. Sorry to bother you.
Right, this is on our Ouija board. This is
on our Ouija board, yeah, right. But yeah, so, but we will talk about that when that comes up. But speaking of which, I have that reading that I wanted to share with you folks. Remember, Keenan mentioned that with the exit of Burke, we now get this new character who provides a nice bit of comic relief. I am speaking, of course, of our guy here, our detective William F. Kinderman. It's here that we see Blatty's comedy background really shining through. So let's have a listen. A reading from the Book of Blatty. The man in the overcoat stood up and began to approach him. "Father Karras," Lieutenant Kinderman called hoarsely. The priest turned around and nodded briefly, squinting into the sunlight, waiting for Kinderman to reach him, then beckoned him along as once again he began to move. "Do you mind? I'll cramp," he panted. "Yes, of course," the detective answered, nodding with a wincing lack of enthusiasm as he tucked his hands into his pockets. The walk from the parking lot had tired him. "Have we met?" asked the Jesuit. "No, Father, no. But they said you looked like a boxer. Some priest at the residence hall, I forget." He was tugging out his wallet. So bad with names. "And yours?" "William Kinderman, Father." He flashed his identification. "Homicide." "Really?" Karras scanned the badge and identification card with a shining boyish interest. Flushed and perspiring, his face had an eager look of innocence as he turned to the waddling detective. "What's this about?" "Hey, you know something, Father," Kinderman answered, inspecting the Jesuit's rugged features. "It's true. You do look like a boxer. Excuse me, that scar, there by your eye?" He was pointing. "Like Brando, it looks like, in Waterfront. Just exactly Marlon Brando. They gave him a scar," he was illustrating, pulling at the corner of his eye. "They made his eye look a little closed. Just a little. Made him look a little dreamy all the time. Always sad." "Well, that's you," he said, pointing. "You're Brando. People tell you that, Father?" "No, they don't." "Have a box?" "Oh, a little." "You're from here in the district?" "New York." Golden gloves, am I right? You just made captain, Karras smiled. Now what can I do for you? Walk a little slower, please. Emphysema. The detective was gesturing at his throat. Oh, I'm sorry. Karras slowed his pace. Never mind. Do you smoke? Yes, I do. You shouldn't. Well, now, tell me the problem. Of course. Incidentally, you're busy? The detective inquired. I'm not interrupting? Interrupting what? Asked Karras, bemused. Well, mental prayer, perhaps. You will make captain, Karras smiled cryptically. Pardon me, I missed something? Karras shook his head, but the smile lingered. I doubt that you ever miss a thing, he remarked. His sidelong glance toward Kinderman was sly and warmly twinkling. Kinderman halted and mounted a massive and hopeless effort at looking befuddled. But glancing at the Jesuit's crinkling eyes, he lowered his head and chuckled ruefully. Ah, well, of course, a psychiatrist. Who am I kidding? He shrugged. Look, it's a habit with me, Father. Forgive me. Schmaltz. That's the Kinderman method. Pure Schmaltz. Well, I'll stop and tell you straight what it's all about. The desecrations, Karras said, nodding. So I wasted my Schmaltz, the detective said quietly. Sorry. Never mind, Father. That I deserved. Yes, the things in the church, he confirmed. Correct. Only maybe something else besides, something serious. Murder? Yes, kick me again. I enjoy it. Well, homicide division, the Jesuit shrugged. Never mind, Marlon Brando, never mind. People tell you for a priest you're a little bit smart-ass. Mea culpa, Karras murmured.
All right. We don't have a downer reading this week. Yeah.
We don't have to end that with sheesh.
Oh.
Right? This is a little bit of a, this is nice and lighthearted. I really like this, right? And I just wanted to share that little bit of dialogue there, right? I actually had a hard time picking a place to stop because honestly, all of the stuff between Karras and Kinderman is clever, it's funny, it's uplifting, and if I read it all, we'd be here all day, right? Mm-hmm. But truly, with the introduction of Kinderman, you can see what Blatty means when he said that he set out to make a supernatural detective story. And a pretty funny one, a pretty lighthearted and clever one at that, which I guess maybe today we would maybe fault him for. Like, hey, what are you doing mixing up genres here, right? Like, this is supposed to be about like murder and demons and all that, right? And if I remember correctly, like our man Lee J. Cobb here plays him a little bit more straight, a little less schmaltzy, right? To go with the tone of Friedkin's movie. And so this right here might be one of the first instances where the book and the movie start to separate a little bit, right? I'm not talking about like little actions like does Karras help the guy in the subway or not? Like I'm talking about like tone, right? And I believe at one time or another, like both Billies, Billy Friedkin and Billy Blatty, have referred to this story as a supernatural detective story. Now, how Blatty does a supernatural detective story and how Friedkin does one seem slightly different, right? We've already seen that. Like Blatty likes to insert a little bit of comedy, a little bit of levity, showing us the lighter side of humanity. The world can't be all bad if people like Karras and Dyer or Karras and Kinderman or Chris and Karl or Chris and Sharon are cracking jokes, right?
If we have Kyle added in, it's all bad, though.
Then it's all bad, right? Yeah. That's the Friedkin version, right? Yeah. But yeah, so, and then we got, speaking of Friedkin, right? Like he's making this movie and he's trying to make a movie and it seems like he wants a certain tone, a certain color, metaphorical color palette, right? Throughout this movie. So that even when we do have moments of levity, they exist within the spectrum of colors and moods that he has created for this world, right? Book Kinderman feels like he could jump out of this story and into some other wisecracking, hard-boiled detective story. And he did, right? Both him and Father Dyer are in Blatty's other book, Legion, right? And this guy right here, played by Lee J. Cobb, feels like a perfect, well-crafted puzzle piece that fits in this movie and makes it good, makes it whole.
Well, we also have to think about the version you've never seen, TVYNS, which ends the movie with Kinderman in a way that I do not particularly care for. I will say that now rather than waiting till the end. I do not like the addition or how do you say it? It was shot originally, they cut it out of the original and then they put it back in. The addition of Kinderman at the end of the movie.
Right. The re-edition or the reinsertion.
Re-edition, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really, really bothers me. That seems to be, again, this is Blatty's character and Blatty is trying to end the movie with a series of jokes. And Friedkin's initial blush in 1973 is to no, there's no joke that could lighten up the ending of The Exorcist. But
this is serious stuff right here.
It's really serious stuff. But then for whatever reason, we put him back in 2000.
Yeah. I think there have been a couple of interviews and a couple of conversations that were taped between Blatty and Friedkin, and he has said repeatedly that he is worried that audiences think the devil won, and I think this might be one of his like well the devil can't possibly win if this priest and this detective are cracking jokes at the very end, right?
I don't know if that undoes it, because the ending of The Exorcist is quite intense, and then if Reagan were cracking jokes at the end, like if she were healed, but we don't. We see her kind of catatonic. And then for him to show up, and then, again, we're jumping all the way to the end, but for him to show up and to become friends with Dyer, I don't necessarily see how that's supposed to fix anything.
I will say, as somebody who has read the book, that it rings true of the flavor that Blatty is creating in the book. So it's a very book Kinderman thing to end on,
right?
Whether or not it belongs in this movie, remains to be seen. Well, I mean, I guess you've already given your.
I said mine is. I'd love to hear from our listeners out there, but yes, that's my opinion.
But and certainly once we get to that. But we do have a little bit of comedy, a little bit of schmaltz here, right? These two characters have just met each other. Karras hasn't even caught his breath, and already he's engaged in a little verbal fencing, right? He shoots back, right? Do people ever tell you look like Paul Newman? And quick as lightning, right? Without any hesitation, Kinderman responds, always. Right. So these guys have taken an improv class or two.
Who would the Paul Newman of today be? That would be like, because so what that means, if you only know Paul Newman from his later movies like Cars or something, like Paul Newman was the epitome of like super sexy, masculine but sensitive, like all around, gorgeous person inside out. He was known for his charities. he was athletic. He was good to his kids and his wife and all that stuff. He was a wonderful guy.
Well, that you brought up a really good point. So I guess like in the context of the time, what is Karras doing here by calling Kinderman Paul Newman? Is he, because at first I thought he was that he looks ugly.
That Kinderman looks ugly in real life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Do people ever tell you look like a mountain crag or something like that? Like,
right, but he's saying you must be compared all the time to Ryan Gosling, and it's like a making fun, right?
Really?
Yeah, Paul Newman was gorgeous in 1973. He was at the height of his stardom, and then we talked about it in the Oscar show, but The Sting is the movie that beat The Exorcist. So I don't think Paul Newman could have been in both The Exorcist and The Sting. You would have had to have chosen.
Right. Yeah. Huh. Okay. So here, so the joke is Karras is saying, no, people don't tell me I look like John Garfield. Do people ever tell you that you look like this other Hollywood heartthrob?
Right. Well, John Garfield was not a Hollywood heartthrob, I would say.
Well, damn it. What the heck is going on in this thing?
Well, Paul Newman was also famous for being a boxer at the time. Somebody up there likes me. So he's also giving him a boxer title. But the joke is that Lee J. Cobb does not look like Paul Newman.
Right. Okay.
Maybe it would be if I asked you, does anyone ever tell you that you look like Michael B. Jordan?
Okay.
Clearly you don't look like Michael B. Jordan.
I'm Googling Michael B. Jordan.
I'm trying to think of who the sexy dude is right now. Yeah.
B. Jordan.
Oh, you don't know him?
I obviously don't know. Oh.
Oh, well, you're going to have quite a surprise when you find out who Michael B. Jordan is.
I was like, what's Keenan saying about? Oh, got it.
Right.
Got it. Okay, so that's the joke. Okay.
I think so.
That he absolutely does not look like Paul Newman.
Right,
okay.
Absolutely. Paul Newman was a gorgeous dude.
Gotcha. And Kinderman is just a craggy,
you're Crag.
Craggy, grumpy old 12 angry men.
Yeah, you're like that rock monster from The Neverending Story. Right.
Well, I was saying the Fantastic Four, but whatever. Or what is it? What is it? The
Fantastic Four. Yeah,
Michael B. hate us.
No. Michael B. Jordan was the Human Torch in Fantastic Four. Yeah.
Oh, geez. Okay, it's all coming together. Right next to my Exorcist corkboard, I have other corkboards, all with Anyway, okay.
It must be really tough to try to catch up with comic book stuff. I mean, I know comics a little bit from when I was a kid, and I so I can at least try to get in there when I see nowadays this person is that, or Captain America was a Hydra sleeper agent for a little while, stuff like that. But if you're starting from zero, I don't know how you even begin.
I gave up. and then Everything Everywhere All at Once came along, and I'm like, I want to watch all of the Michele Yeoh verse.
Absolutely.
Right?
Now, well, she's
not the MCU, but the MYU.
Well, unfortunately, she is in 2 Marvel movies as 2 different characters.
Well, I will see those 2 Marvel movies.
I don't know how they let that happen. It's some, you want to pretend like Kevin Feige has a iron grip on the continuity of the MCU and that everything is planned, but no, she is 2 different characters, and that can't be right.
Wait, what? Oh, that's what you mean. I thought you meant like she plays the same character in 2 movies.
No, she is a character in Shang-Chi, and then she's another character in Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Oh, that's
just a mistake.
How do you justify that? Yeah.
Gemma Chan is 2 characters. She is in the Eternals, and she's also in Captain Marvel. But in Captain Marvel, she's like a blue alien. Okay. So you couldn't possibly tell. But Michele Yeoh is just her face, and she's a big movie star, and so it's very clear she's the same person. Yeah.
They're not like making a
no, they just don't. No, they just don't know what they're doing. It's just a mistake. That just can't be right.
Wait, you mean the people who make the MCU don't know what they're doing?
I think that's some evidence of that. Yeah, yeah, that's some evidence that they made a mistake there. And there's another one where Alfre Woodard plays a different character in whichever movie that is. Oh shoot. Civil War, I think, and then she's a different character in the TV MCU of Luke Cage. So that's at least 3 different characters, or 3 different actors who play 2 different characters.
See, unless you own it, and folks, this is after the Oscars. I've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once 5 times now. I remember anecdotally somebody saying well, they can't do MCU movies anymore because Everything Everywhere All at Once has kind of set the bar for alternate universe movies.
Oh yeah, multiverse stuff. Mm-hmm.
Multiverse stuff. Yeah, it's everything else in comparison just looks like shit.
We'll see. So you're not an MCU person, but you are an EOW person.
I am an EOW and an MYU person. Yeah. I will watch a movie, an entire movie set in the hot dog universe. I want to see Deirdre Beaudeirdre and Evelyn. I want to see that whole story.
I would love that. Yeah.
God.
But in Guardians, you might be done with an MCU, but in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, they promised us a spin-off team, which was Sylvester Stallone, Michele Yeoh, and Miley Cyrus as a talking radio or something, the John Lovitz radio character from the Brave Little Toaster.
Interesting.
And I don't know why that hasn't become a thing, but that's that's the end credit thing, is them going off on their own adventures. I don't know why we don't see that.
Wow. I am excited about a third of that.
You don't want to see Sylvester Stallone?
I've seen a lot of Sylvester Stallone.
All right.
I see him in the Rocky movies. I'm happy with the Rocky movies. Yeah. Anyway, so we're back to kind of the quick verbal fencing that these 2 guys are doing, right? And quick as lightning, we got Kinderman saying always, right? And Karras just walks away, and it lingers on Kinderman for a little bit, for a second, and we get this look like, here we go, one of these guys. And he follows after.
So Kinderman, if we're looking at the way that Blatty has named some of these characters, Dr. Klein means Dr. Little or Dr. Small. Dr. Tanny means Dr. Slim or Dr. Thin. And then Detective Kinderman means Detective Childman.
Yes, actually. Yeah. I was always wondering whether or not that was intentional or if that had any meaning to it at all, right? But he is kind of this absent-minded, Columbo-esque kind of a man-child,
You think he's a pushover. Right?
Yes, exactly.
It's interesting that he defines himself in terms of Schmaltz in the novel. I don't know if we get that in the dialogue in the movie, but
no, I don't think so.
But that would place him quite clearly as a Jew, right? Because he's speaking in Yiddish and talking about this term Schmaltz, which is kind of I don't know. I guess the reason we use the word schmaltz in English is because it's sort of hard to define and hard to translate over, right? Because sometimes schmaltz is a bad thing, and that it's too sentimental or too emotional, and then sometimes it's a good thing because it's satisfying, which goes back to its original roots, as schmaltz literally means melted goose fat or melted chicken fat that you'd use for cooking. Yeah. So it means satisfying, warm, comforting, and also it means kind of hokey or Yeah, so it's interesting he would introduce himself that way, like, oh, that's my thing, is I'm Schmaltz, and that places him firmly as a Jew and someone who is separate from the Catholic world and an outsider.
Yeah, and they make a bigger thing out of it in the book as well. Mm-hmm. And again, it's this wonderful. So we have Father Marin in the beginning, friends with the Arab curator, right, who is most likely a Muslim, and like the religion, their friendship kind of like transcends their different religions.
I mean, and you only say most likely because we got burned by the Jesuit dean thing. Of course, he's a Muslim, right? Yeah. He's an Arab. He's an Arab in Iraq. Yes, and he's yes. Yeah, and he has a position of power. He's not on the run from the Saddam government.
Right,
yes,
right.
He is.
Oh, this is the Muslim. Saddam government.
Right,
yeah,
he's
so
a Muslim.
He wouldn't be able to be anything else.
Right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Right, and it's not. There's no university over there, so.
Right.
but no, I mean, like I just kind of like thought of that parallel just now, is that we have this friendship here between a Jesuit and a Jewish person,
right?
And I think that is really, really cool.
Yeah. And then, the other thing about him being a Jew is that, Blatty is a Catholic, obviously, right? But he's also a comedy writer. And so a lot of comedy writing is influenced by Jewish comedy, by Yiddish theater. I was just having a conversation with my brother-in-law, and we were talking about this completely in agreement about how, like, Black music and American pop music are inseparable. Like when you think about like what American pop music is, it just is Black music, right? So that's like jazz and ragtime and rap and rock and hip hop and the blues and R&B and gospel, like everything that is
in
Black
the
music.
Yeah, you see in the the Oscar-nominated Elvis, right?
Right,
like,
exactly.
It's like where he got his start, right, and his inspiration.
Yeah, you cannot separate those things. And American comedy really is Jewish humor. It really is like the type of stand-up that became big in the 50s and 60s and 70s, right? It was self-confessional, like self-effacing. Like it's stories about like, let me tell you an anecdote about how I was an idiot someplace, right? It's not an anecdote about how great I am, right? Yeah, which is just self-referential, almost self-loathing Jewish humor, right?
Yeah.
So like it's almost impossible to separate those things out. What we think of as American comedy and what is Jewish and Yiddish humor.
Yeah. Folks, think of the funniest people that you were watching while you were growing up, right? If you are like the same age as Keenan and myself, right? It's like I'm thinking Mel Brooks. I'm thinking all those people, right?
Right. I mean, anybody you can think of. Yeah, Mel Brooks is a start at least.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to get not to say Woody Allen, but he's like the most influential.
That was the other name.
He's like the most influential.
Then my head was like, don't say Woody Allen.
Right, but Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, Elaine May, and Mike Nichols, like all of that is just Jewish comedy.
Yeah. But so now we jump in time here, and it looks like maybe we're up on the top of the bleachers. Do we think, or like we're at some other vantage point?
I don't even think higher than the bleachers. Yeah.
We're not like I don't think we're overlooking the same track. Right?
No,
now that I look, we're definitely in a different place. There's sand down there. The buildings are a little bit closer. It's still the Georgetown campus, though.
Right.
And the day seems a little bit brighter. Like maybe Karras was running in the early morning, and now the sun is starting to like really come out and get rid of all that like mist and fog. But yeah. So now they're talking about Burke. Kinderman mentions that he was doing the film here, and Karras allows that. Yeah, he's seen him, and we know that we saw him seeing him. Right, that was our first introduction to Karras. Right, we even before we even knew his name. And Kinderman continues, and is like, "You're also familiar with how last week he died." And Karras says, "Only what I read in the papers." What do we make of Karras here? Is he being cagey right off the bat? Is he being honest? Does he want this guy to F off? Does he want to help? Like, obviously he's not involved yet, right? He doesn't know anything about anything, right? He hasn't met Reagan. He hasn't met Chris. He has no stake yet in keeping secrets in their story at all. But he comes off sort of like tight-lipped and and I'm like, but why? Like, you have nothing to do with anything yet. Like, there will come a time when he is closed-mouthed to protect Reagan, but like, what's he doing here, like right now?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to wonder that. I think it also is helpful to a 1970s youth-centered audience. It's like, screw this cop who, right? Here's a cop, nah. But I think he's going to reveal what he's actually doing later on, which is that he's assuming things, and he's protecting his priests. Right, that's going to come up in a couple minutes from now, where Kinderman is getting to the point, and then Karras is getting to the point that like, well, if someone were to have confessed something to me, it would be protected as a doctor-patient confidentiality thing.
Right. But even then, right, like there's, and maybe it reveals a little bit more of this in the book, but like all of the things that Kinderman is describing, like Karras honestly doesn't know anybody who would fit that description anyway, right? Right. But yeah, it's very interesting.
But I think he's probably gotten. I think he's probably like. Of course, this is our movie version, so this is the first time that we see him, being talked to by a detective, etc. But he's a sophisticated man of the world at a very large institution, and so it's probably not out of the question that he has at least thought of what he would do in the situation. And, if a cop comes sniffing around, to say very little.
Interesting. And yeah, like you said, Keenan, this is of a time when like attitudes towards the police, towards authorities and stuff like that. Like people were a little bit more standoffish with cops and detectives, like even in other movies around this time, right?
Yeah. This is where you start having, where there are cop movies that are popular, they start to be very, very different from the traditional cop movies. Say The French Connection. These are cops who look like your everyday Joes, and they break the rules to get results, etc. We're not supposed to like them necessarily. We're supposed to be interested in them. And then there's, say, Shaft, who's a black private dick who's the sex machine to all the chicks.
Now shut your mouth.
But I'm talking about Shaft.
Oh, okay. Well, then I can dig it.
And then, they go in the super heightened conservative route of Dirty Harry. Which is basically a fascist cop who's like, I don't need my badge. He throws his badge away at the end, and he just shoots people if he knows / thinks or feels that they're guilty. He just takes it upon himself to shoot them. Yeah.
When did we get the 3 steps away from a heart attack police chief who's like standing up and like banging his fists on the desk and being it's like you're writing checks your body can't cash. Like, when did that happen?
I don't know. I wonder if that just exists in parody. I wonder if there's actually anything that's making fun of directly. That might just be in the comedy version of it. Oh. Like, I don't know the answer to that one. That probably exists. But the old silent movie where the guy with the mustache ties the maiden to the train tracks.
Oh yeah, that one, yeah.
That never existed in serious media. That was always a parody. Like that idea we have, was just the comedy version making fun of.
So you just set me up. You're like, Lester, you've seen that old silent movie. Here on the Exorcist Minute, what an excellent day for throwing your co-host under the bus. Or tying them to a railroad track.
Tying them to a railroad track, right.
Oh, yeah, Keenan, of course I've seen that movie. Everybody's seen that movie.
Everyone's seen that, yeah. No, but you have it in your head as if it actually exists, right?
Right, correct, yeah. And I'm thinking of like Snidely Whiplash and in the Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle cartoons and everything like that. Wow, so
but they were making...
doesn't exist.
Well, it does exist in silent film, but it's already making fun. It's already a comedy version of that. Like, there isn't a straight version of that, yeah.
I wonder how many of those are there. Like, yeah, the near to heart attack police chief, the Snidely Whiplash tying the girl to the train tracks. Like, how many other things like don't actually have an origin?
Geez, I was trying to think. Like, is the kid who asked the baseball player to hit a home run for him, is that real, or is that just the parodies of it?
Well, are you talking about like the "Say It Ain't So, Joe"? Like, because isn't that Joe DiMaggio? That's
no. Oh my goodness! I hope we don't have any sports fans listening to what Lester just said.
What?
"Say It Ain't So, Joe" is about the Chicago Black Sox.
Oh,
who through the World Series,
Yeah, sure. I watched that right after I watched that guy tie the girl to the train tracks. Yeah.
Let's see. How do I? The Great Gatsby.
I do. Yeah. Also known as rich white people being sad. Yes.
Yeah. No. There's a character in there who is a fictional character who Meyer Wolfsheim, who has rigged the World Series, but that really happened. Is that the World Series was rigged by the Chicago White Sox, and they called them the Chicago Black Sox, and that's the idea of saying them. So
there we go. Okay. All right. So not Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio was Marilyn Monroe's husband in the 50s. That's much later.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go. We've learned a lot about baseball.
That's all my baseball knowledge. So I'm glad that we got that out here.
That's more than I have. Yeah. Yeah. I just like it when they get a touchdown. Unsubscribe. 1 star.
I'd try to get all my baseball facts from the Exorcist Minute podcast.
Yeah. Oh, when are they going to do? They did an Oscars episode. When are they going to do a World Series episode? Come on.
Oh.
Yeah. But actually, yeah. Okay. So let's get back to Kinderman and Karras here. So looking at him now in this next shot as they round the corner here, Kinderman asks, what do you know on the subject of witchcraft? Karras does have this private moment as he's walking that Kinderman can't see, and he has this look of reflection, like he's invested, like he's thinking deeply about all of this. So maybe he really is concerned and he wants to help. The book even hints that this is not exciting like someone died, but like it hints that it like wakes up this inner child in him, right? The book does this a couple of times, like when he's talking to the homicide detective and when he's with Chris, right? He gets this little flash and he thinks, little Dimmy with the movie star, right? So we get these little kind of like flashes back to childhood for Karras.
So that's Blatty's version, right? But maybe, yes. Jason Miller from Scranton and young Billy Friedkin, the juvenile delinquent, probably have different ideas about, a cop's coming and asking me questions. It's probably not as specific as it's not as exciting, rather.
Oh, that is a good point. Yeah, right. Because Friedkin is the one making this movie. So yeah, so he's going to have a very different idea. Oh my God. I'm just imagining, right? Like little Bill Blatty and little Bill Friedkin would have 2 very different officer conversations.
Right, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah, wow. Even in that part that you read from the book, right? It's like, oh wow, look, a police badge, and he's like, oh wow, yeah, little Dimmy is a real police badge.
That's Blatty right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Friedkin was like, I don't know nothing.
Right. I'm not telling you anything. Right.
Whatever they say, it's not true. See? Yeah.
Yeah, and again, Jason Miller from Scranton, which is Joe Biden's hometown, when they see a cop coming, they spit.
Well, there you go.
I once saw that in an old 40s movie, and I was shocked. Like this old lady I forget what movie it is, but this old lady says, when I see a cop coming, I spit. And oh, lady. Wow. But that was not an atypical way of thinking about it, especially when you come from an immigrant community in the 1940s. That a cop coming around is a bad thing.
Interesting. Yeah. So we got a couple of things, right? We got Blatty's influence, we got Friedkin's influence, and we also got Jason Miller, right, from Scranton, Pennsylvania. But yeah, so Kinderman asks him what he knows about witchcraft, and he specifies from the witching end, not the hunting. Karras says that he once did a paper on it. Kinderman's like, from the psychiatric end, right? That's the comedy again, right? Like Bing Bang Boom, right? But suddenly he's not looking at nothing anymore. It looks like he's looking at something, right? Like in the nothing. You know what I mean? Like, folks, we have in the movie, we got a lot of people looking off into space. And I swear to God, you can actually tell when that space is empty or when it's full, if that makes any sense at all. What I mean is you can tell the difference between when characters are recalling something or remembering something or just thinking about something not in the scene, and when they're just staring into the abyss, right? They're either looking outward or they're looking inward, right? Their eyes are either seeing something else, like a memory or a thought, or it's just like their eyes have been shut off, even though they're still open, right? And we get both of those in this movie. And that is so wild that you can actually tell the difference between when they happen. Who knew there was more than one type of blank stare? Fortunately here, I think we're getting the first one. Kinderman is talking and Karras is sort of half listening, but his mind is traveling, right? His eyes are seeing other things. And I find it interesting that he looks this way as they're talking about witchcraft, as he is talking about this psychiatric paper that he did. Like, what is he seeing? What is he recalling? And Kinderman says, like again, this is all in the span of a couple seconds, right? He says he wrote this paper on it from the psychiatric end, and Kinderman kind of pauses and he says he knows he read it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, right? See, here, folks, we get like a tiny glimpse of just how good Kinderman actually is at his job, right? Despite this seemingly like harmless, I think Blatty even says like basset hound exterior, right?
Yeah, that's very good.
He wasn't exactly leading Karras on, but he was leading him toward this point right here. And I like that. And then he asks whether the desecration in the church has anything to do with witchcraft. Karras allows that maybe some rituals used in Black Mass, maybe. Now, as they're talking, they're walking past these tennis courts. Just a casual stroll. I like the metaphor here too, right? Just a friendly stroll between friends. I'm not leading you anywhere. And all the while, the conversation is like a tennis match.
Mm-hmm.
Kinderman serves. Karras hits it back. And then suddenly Kinderman stops walking and sort of moves in front of Karras, blocking his path. And he says, and now, Dennings, you read how he died. Boom. Point Kinderman. Got him.
It's interesting, like Kinderman does want him to know that he's good at his job sometimes. It's weird where he wants him to do that, right? Because he'll be like, oh, I read your paper, which is
right.
a big, that reveals that he's been lying. He's like, oh, do you know anything about, but no, I read your paper, right? So
it's a wink.
Yeah. It's interesting that he lets him in on that. And then just to do that a second time here, right? So he keeps going back and forth between being very competent and then seeming not to be competent. I wonder what's in it for Kinderman to let the priest know at all that he's competent.
That's actually a really good question. And it certainly is a different interaction than what he has with Chris. And I think I'm going to mention it a little bit later, but this interaction with Karras and the interaction with Chris, they're switched in the book. Mm-hmm. So we meet Kinderman first with Chris.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so they've switched this around actually. But I think the way that he talks to Karras, almost as this like equal fencing partner, and the way that he talks to Chris, and he's very much kind of like putting on that like schmaltzy, bumbling basset hound exterior, and he never takes it off.
Right.
Over there.
That's interesting you say fencing, because this sequence here that you're walking by the tennis courts is really reminiscent of this other scene from this Max Ophuls movie called The Earrings of Madame D. And that is about these two men who are fighting over one of their wives, and like the husband knows that the wife is cheating on him with this dude, and the dude knows that the husband knows that, but they can't ever say it, because it's in like the 1800s. And they have a very similar conversation as they're walking past a fencing area. So it's very similar to this shot, except they're going from left to right, and they're talking, oh, we're just pleasant chums, yada 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 yada. Well, in the background, people are stabbing each other with foils and eppies and stuff like that.
Ooh, I like
so it's
that.
very similar to this one, and that's called out in the script for tennis court, like the previous one is called out for the football field.
Oh, very interesting. Okay. So like I said, Kinderman asks Karras what he knows on the subject of witchcraft, and Karras says that he did a paper on it. Well, it turns out, Keenan, that I also did a paper on it long ago, way back in college class, far, far away.
I know. I read it.
Yeah. Right.
No, I haven't actually. But
okay.
Sorry.
You didn't read my paper? I'm so offended. No. And I happen to take a little bit of umbrage with some of the things that Karras and I guess Blatty says in this book about witchcraft, right? Not so much in the movie. There's not a lot of stuff mentioned, at least not in the minutes that we've seen and heard so far. Now, I don't know how much of the resources I had when I was writing my paper were available back in the 70s when Blatty was writing his, or Karras was writing his, and Blatty was writing Karras writing his. There we go. This is also still 10 years before what we now call the satanic panic of the 80s, when like America became like super paranoid about stuff being possibly related to Satan or Satanism.
Yeah, that's a huge part of our upbringing. is the Satanic Panic, and that's one of the things that that turned our generation into video game nerds and like keeping people inside, and like we don't walk anywhere anymore, and our parents complained about that because they kept us inside to be safe from the devil.
From the devil,
yeah. They were very worried about that, and like there's terms like satanic ritual abuse. You know, they made up terms for things that don't exist because I was reading that there were like 12,000 accusations of satanic ritual abuse, and 0 have ever been found. Yeah, and that has made us the fat and lazy Zoom generation. We don't go outside, and we just Uber Eats everything to our houses.
Yeah. That's one of the side effects of that, right? Like the other being a huge amount of, what do you call it? It's not xenophobia when it's fear of another religion, right?
I don't know. Theophobia.
Theophobia?
Right.
I'm afraid of people named Theo. Oh my God.
Right. But you know, whatever that is, phobia of other, but also QAnon is just a version of the Satanic Panic. Yeah.
All of that stuff. Yeah. And folks, that's a whole episode right there. Well, I don't want to do an episode on QAnon, but
no, there's other podcasts about QAnon. We don't need to do this.
Yeah. Other podcasts that on both sides of that thing, right?
Oh yeah. Don't tell our listeners to go Google QAnon and listen to podcasts about QAnon. Don't do that.
Yeah. You might find the wrong QAnon podcast.
Right.
Let's just say.
But as I was thinking about this movie a lot in relation to Satanic Panic, because this is sort of leading up into I was trying to find that whether the Satanic Panic is related to The Exorcist, and I couldn't quite find that.
It's because The Exorcist falls right in between Rosemary's Baby and then the Satanic Panic.
Right. So you want to say they're related.
Right. Is this, right? Here we go again with the vocab, folks, right? Like, is this causation or correlation, right? Is this ice creams causing sunburns, or is this Internet Explorer causing your parents to divorce?
Right.
I don't know.
It's post hoc ergo propter hop. I believe that's what it is.
What the fuck did you just say?
Post hoc ergo prompter hoc. So this followed, therefore this caused this, I believe is what it is.
There we go.
That's off the top of my head. So don't use me as your philosophy 102 homework.
Yeah. We're just a couple of straw men, folks.
Post hoc ergo prompter hoc. This came after, therefore it results from this.
Well, there we go.
Yes.
Perfect. But yes. So in any case, we are slowly but surely establishing this fear of Satan and witchcraft here in the late 20th century. But I think we're going to continue that in the next minute.
Oh, a cliffhanger. I can't wait.
Yes.
I've been waiting to hear all of your stuff about witchcraft.
Oh, yes. So I'm excited for that. But for now, that's all the notes I have for this minute. Keenan, is there anything else we missed?
No, I think we got it all.
All right, folks. This has been another excellent Exorcist Minute. I've been Lester Ryan Clark. You can reach me on all the socials as Lester Ryan Clark.
And I've been Keenan Diaz, and you can find me on Instagram and Letterboxd as Howdy Keenan.
Our website for the show is theexorcistminute.com. We also have a Facebook page, so if you like us and you want to share us with your friends, you can head over there. We also have a listener group called Compelling Conversations. Just a request to join, and we'll let you in here with us. And as always, if you'd like to leave us a message, our email is theexorcistminute@gmail.com, all one word. And lastly, if you like the show and you want to help us out, the best thing you can do for a new podcast that's just starting out is to leave a little 5-star review, and that'll help us to grow and reach more people, and we'll really, really appreciate it. All right. Keenan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time, the power of Michael B. Jordan compels you.